Welcome everyone. I hope you all had a good half term. We're back with the 5th instalment of our GCSE Livestream and we've got a brand new host. Welcome Laura.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura, a Learning Manager at the Raspberry Pi Foundation. I'm very happy to be here for my first time and our post-Halloween episode.
I don't think we've got anything spooky planned.
I mean, some of those topics can be quite frightening, right? That's why we have our lovely guest experts to help us out.
Exactly, taking the boo out of Boolean logic.
Ooh, we really should have done fancy dress for this episode now I think about it.
Computer science Halloween costumes?
I could have come as Clippy, the helpful paperclip.
I'm not sure many of our viewers will know what that is. I feel we need to bring back Clippy. It's the only answer.
Yeah, sorry, Katie, it's a bit 90s. Although Clippy would make a brilliant guest host. Speaking of hosts, who have we got joining us for this week's session?
This week, we're joined by computer science teacher and former software engineer, Melanie Denig. Melanie will be taking us through sequence, selection, and iteration as part of our series on programming concepts.
I'm really looking forward to this session. If you have any questions during the live stream, please remember to share those in the chat or by using the question form below. Hopefully we'll have a link to the question form. Yay, a link.
Excellent. And at the end of the session, we will share an Isaac Computer Science game board featuring some questions from the platform for you to try so you can test out what you've learned today.
So shall we welcome Melanie to the stream?
Hello.
Hi, Melanie. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. It's a little dark here and very windy in Devon, but inside it's okay. I'm not too cold.
Good. So in this session, you'll be covering how we can make use of 3 basic programming concepts to control the flow of a program: sequence, selection, and iteration. I've got a feeling we'll be hearing those 3 words a lot this afternoon.
Probably, right. If you are ready for me to start, I shall be going on and talk to you about sequences, selections, and iterations. I'm not sure if my screen is shared already. Just waiting for a moment. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, programming concepts, in some sense, I would like to claim that those are the only concepts that we've got. If we strip it down, what we do in programming, it is that flow, controlling the flow of the program, the flow of those instructions that we give to the computer. And yes, we can do that in sequence, or we can do it by making a selection or repeating things with iteration. And that's really it. You know, we can do anything we like with only those 3 concepts. So just to start off with a bit of a definition. So sequences, what do I mean by a sequence? Well, by a sequence, I mean I give one instruction after another, one instruction after another, and another and another. So imagine I'm giving the instructions for a walk through the woods. And I can say, go this way, and then go to this tree, and then go to this rock. That's a one instruction after another in sequence, in one sequence. Now, that might work quite well, but it doesn't give many options. And if something goes wrong, then what do you do? So selection is the next important concept that we've got. So again, imagine that set of instructions are for the walk through the woods. In these conditions right now, there may be the case that there is some flooding. So you have your sequence of instructions, but at some point there may be the option to check which way to go next. So I have a branch and then I can select on a condition. So the condition might say flooded. So if one of the paths is flooded, then don't go there. So I can select on that condition. So if my next path is flooded, if that's the condition, then don't go there, take the other path. It's a bit complicated if both paths are flooded, but of course that would be a follow-on session. The next important concept would be that of iteration. In some sense, I can just repeat my instructions over and over and over again. Same with my selection. I can have the same code blocks repeated and repeated and repeated. That's all very well, but it would create something that we like to call spaghetti code if we jump around our code like that. So iteration, when we identify that is something that I do over and over again. So instead of writing it out over and over again, we have a construct for that, and you will see that in a moment. So today, we're not going to walk through the woods. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to program a conversation, a very, very, very small one. But I'm going to give you some ideas of how you might be able to code something which could end up to be a chatbot. We've all had experiences with chatbots now, whether that is waiting on the phone with some automated voice, or whether that is a little chat window on a website. So we all know what that is. And today I just give you the small starting blocks to build something like that. Right, so we start with a sequence. So a conversation, I'm making the claim a conversation is a sequence of exchanges. I say something and then the other person says something. So let's make a start with say hello. In most countries I've been to, that's a good start to a conversation. Say hi. The next good start is where you ask for a name. And you notice that I've written that name, the word name in bold, just to highlight that that may be something. And in a moment that becomes clear. Remember name. And some of you may already be thinking in the back of their head, that's going to be a variable. Yes, so that's going to be a variable because I'm going to have to remember that name if I want to use it later. As a human, I don't have to tell myself, remember. But in a computer, I have to really explicitly say, remember that name. I may then ask for the age, especially in the context of computer science and building programs. I think it's really important. We know it's important because we should, for example, not allow very young children to be online by themselves. So we're asking for the age. So remember the age, because now we get this idea of, well, I could go on, but that I may have to change the next sequence, because if that person that is talking with the computer is below the age of 13, then, well, I've got to say sorry. That chatbot has to say sorry because it's going to have to exit, right? So that is, if that is true, if that condition is true, if the age is smaller than 13, I'm going to have to say sorry and I'm going to have to exit the program. But what if it's false? Well, I can continue the conversation, right? I can continue the conversation. And at this point, my little arrow is reminding me that now I want to show you the code that I would write for that. Just going to get this picture up. Right, here's my flow chart. So I'm saying hello, I'm asking for the name, remember the name. So the only thing I've coded so far is I said hello. And those of you, who've got quite a bit of Python experience, maybe you could yourself try and code that. Maybe you could raise me to the coding. So I'm gonna code live, and maybe you can in your head think what I might type, or maybe even you've got a window open, you can type yourself. Right, ask for name. What is your name? What is your name? And forgive the spelling if it goes wrong. I spell really, really badly. So what is your name? Ask for name. So now I need to remember the name. So I need to create a variable. And I'm going to say input. No, that's not going to work. So input. So from the input, I'm going to get that name. That's my way of remembering. Then I'm going to ask for the age. So I'm going to say print, what is your age? What is your age? And then I'm going to have to remember that age. And now I'm going to have to do something tricky. And again, maybe some of you watching will realize, she's going to have to do something different. It can't be exactly the same pattern as on line 3, because that's going to be a number. The name is going to be a word, and anything I type in is a string in terms of the data type. So this one I'm going to convert to an integer. So I've done this bit, and hopefully it's going to run. Let's see. What is your name? I'm going to say Mimi because Melanie is too long to write. And that's always cringeworthy. I can't believe I'm 54, but I am. Right. So that's it. So far, nothing else we've done. So let's go back to the slideshow. So that's our condition. Of course, we could have created a different condition based on a different value. And you can play with that after this. this little broadcast. Right, how are we going to continue? Well, maybe I can now start a quiz, and it's quite a common exercise. Some GCSE coding projects, they've actually asked students to create a quiz. So again, I'm giving you a little insight, a little skeleton code of how you can then expand that into something like 20 questions. So ask, what is 7 times 8? And then I need to remember the answer. And if the answer is 56, I'm going to say, yay. So this is a problem if I leave it like this, because what if they, people want to have a chance. What if they get it wrong and they want to be asked again? Well, that's why I need to have this idea of the loop, this iteration. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to ask, what is 7 times 8? I'm going to remember the answer. I'm going to check it. But if it is wrong, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. So now we're at this iteration, and most people find that quite tricky to go from just a condition to an iteration. Now I'm going to show you a little trick how it's going to be much easier. So going back to my code. Now I need to remember how I did that. So, okay, here's my flowchart. Age smaller than, it's the selection. Sorry, I need the iteration one. See, if I don't have all of my flowcharts, I'm going to find it hard to know exactly what I was going to do here. I'm going to ask, what is 7 times 8? So I'm going to say print, what is 7 times 8? Oops. Times 8. What is 7 times 8? And then I'm going to remember the answer. So I'm going to say answer. And again, I'm going to just leave it as an integer. I could convert it to a float, right? I need to convert anything that comes from input, right? Then I have this if statement. So I need to have if answer is equal to 56. But now it's like, whoa, what's going on? I'm not having a loop. I'm doing something else. And now I'm going to show you my trick. It's this bit. These 2 lines, I know I want to repeat. I need to repeat those 2 lines if it's wrong, right? If it's wrong. If the answer is 56, then I can break out of the repetition. I can break out. So my trick is this. I'm going to say while true, and you can think of this while true almost like a mechanism, something that kicks off your loop, right? So if I say while true, my loop is going to be kicked off. Everything that comes below with an indent is going to be repeated, So while true, think of it as kicking off repetition. I could even, oops, no, I can't. Yes, I can. Can I get my comment? Yes. I'm going to say kicking off. And the trick is that if I have that if statement at the bottom where I say if the answer, I'm going to put into brackets, if the answer is 56, then I'm going to break. Sorry. I'm going to break. And I realized I didn't do the if statement. Sorry, I didn't check if they are allowed to play. I want to quickly put that in. If age is equal to, sorry, smaller than, it's because I didn't have the right flowchart. So keep that as a lesson. I didn't have my flowchart on my image. So if the age is smaller than 13, then I'm going to say print sorry. And I'm going to say print sorry, and then I'm going to exit. That's what I had planned originally. Else, I'm allowed to play. So all of this is going to go into my else block, so I have to indent it. Yay. Okay, I think I did that right. Woof. Let's see if it works. What's your name? I'm going to say Mimi. What is your age? I'm going to be truthful. And I'm going to say it's 56. And yes, that worked. But of course, we need to test all cases. So I'm now going to do it again with this one. What is your age? Bang. Oh, so that didn't work, which is what I wanted. So I wanted that. So I'm going to run it again. What is your name? Mimi. And what is your age? This time I'm going to be truthful with that. And this time I'm going to say it's 57. And it's going to ask me again. And it's going to ask me again. Bingo. Until I've got the right answer. So this code, I leave on this link for a while so people can grab it and then work it into their own version. And just going to go back to my slideshow. Here is the program as a flowchart again. So we've got our sequence to start off with. Then we've got our condition. And again, we've got one condition, and that selects the condition, helps us to select the next flow. Do I go one way or do I go another way? I then move into a repetition if it's false. So if I'm okay to continue my repetition, and I identify the block that I'm going to repeat first. So it's a particular type of loop that I'm building here. And then I'm repeating until my condition is true, and then I'm done. Okay. And that is my very, very brief whistle-stop introduction to, introduction. Most of you will have seen this before. But I'm hoping that that little trick with building the loops will help you in the future. So sequence, selection, and iteration. Right. And I wonder if we've got any questions.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Melanie. Some really practical examples there.
I really liked your walking example, but live coding, that's got to be the star of the show.
I know, and live making mistakes. I was particularly proud of that.
We all make mistakes, definitely. Okay,
no, it's
Melanie.
important. It's important. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. You know, it's exactly. You have to make mistakes.
Brilliant. So, Melanie, would you like to move on to some questions that we've been sent? Katie, I think you've got a question that we can ask Melanie.
Yeah, so that while loop looks really powerful. How does that progress into more complex scenarios?
So the while loop that I've constructed there with this idea of just while true, kicking it off, and then I have my condition at the end. I could do anything I like with it. Well, not quite anything. There's a little, it's somewhat limiting. But once you are familiar, once you're fluid with this idea of building those conditions to stop your loop, because that is the real struggle. It's easy enough to repeat something, but make it stop at the right point. Once you're more fluid, then you can move that condition that we've got at the bottom, you can move it to the top. So instead of saying while true, that condition then is, so in our case, it will say while answer, but careful, the Boolean logic swaps around. So it's going to say while answer not 56. So we can then, of course, build loops within loops and conditions within conditions. And another really powerful mechanism is our for loop, which is just a special kind of while loop. Fundamentally, it can all be translated into a while loop. And we've got the idea of what I've done, that is our post condition. It's just easier for most humans to build a post condition loop. So that's why I like to show students the post condition loop first, just so that they can easily build them in a programming project and also easily build them on an exam. So that's our post-condition loop. Once we move the condition up, so that in our case, it would say while answer not 56, that would be our precondition. If we want to count, if we want to give them maybe just 10 chances, well, then we say for so many times, for however many times we want them to do that. I hope that sort of gives you a bit of an idea how these things become more complex.
That sounds like a lot of potential topics for some future live streams, Melanie.
Yes.
What I was really interested to see when you were coding is you had the flowchart on your screen. How useful do you find that when you're coding?
So useful. So I got caught out, didn't I? Because I'd only had the selection and I didn't change it to the. Sorry, I only had the sequence, and then I didn't put up the selection bit, and I just forgot about it. And students are very reluctant to draw those flowcharts. I think maybe part of the barrier is that when they do it, somebody else has to read it, right? They have to write those to an audience. If we go down to the office of my partner right now, who's also a coder and still in industry, the desk will be strewn with bits of paper, little scribbles of flowcharts, little bit of pseudocode, other design bits. So people in industry do that all the time. My own notebook is always like, it's lying here, full of scribbles, absolutely full of scribbles, you know, that because I do need some way to formalize my thought before I put it into code. So very, very powerful. The barrier I feel for students is that it has to be neat, but sorry, we teachers have to read it. So please stick to it.
Oh, you can't beat a messy desk for getting those ideas down. So I think we've got time for just one more question. What are the common things that people struggle with on this topic?
So I would say the biggest barrier, the sort of most difficult stepping stone in the learning progression is certainly the repetition. And in my experience, teaching programming now for quite a number of years, it is because Python is popular for the right reasons. When I was in industry, I did not code in Python. It took me a while to accept it, but Python is really useful because it's low on syntax. So the squirrely brackets, the semicolons, none of that gets in the way, but it has some restrictions. So for example, where some languages have repeat until, which is what I've done here, Python traditionally only has that while construct. And it's a strange way to think about things. As humans, when we repeat something, our focus is on the repetition, on the doing, right? If I want to, or well, they're no longer at home, but my children when they were at home, and I would want them, you know, to give them some instructions such as, you know, pick the stuff off of the floor. That's what the first thing I say until nothing is left on the floor. I don't say, whilst there are still things on the floor, pick things off of the floor. It's not the way we like to approach problems or instructions as humans. So I think that's a major barrier, that we try and move on to the computer science while loop, and we're not giving humans the chance, just do it this way to start with. That really is a major hurdle.
Excellent. Brilliant questions and excellent answers. Thank you very much. We have had one question about syntax error, but I think that's a little bit outside the scope of this topic and we are running out of time. But I am also pleased to see that other people do have messy desks with those design ideas on. Yeah, that's Mickey there. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Laura.
Yeah, it's been great having you on, Melanie. Thank you so much. And you're back with us on the 16th of November. So we're lucky enough to have you back for another session on programming concepts.
Yes, I think we're doing the arithmetic operators. In that, am I right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah,
yes, no, that looks.
So I'm really looking forward to do some stuff on modulo, because you can do some really, really cool things with the modulo operator. So I might even demonstrate how we can simulate rain using modulo.
Oh,
But
one of my favorites.
I know the time is a bit tight, but I'll see if I can squeeze that in.
You're really pushing the boundaries of what we can do in our live streams, Melanie. Thank you so much, and we will see you in a few weeks.
Super. Thank you very much. Thank you.
As we said earlier, we've put together some questions for you to have a go at so you can test your knowledge on everything you've learned today. You'll find them by clicking on the short link in the chat below. We'll also send it out in the follow-up email so you don't miss it.
Yes, and we've got loads of hints to help you find the right answer if you're struggling with any of the questions. All of our materials are mapped to the exam board specifications for AQA, OCR, Edexcel, Educast and WJC to make them directly relevant for your GCSE studies.
As we mentioned, our next session is in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday, the 16th of November, where we're joined again by Melanie.
Yes, join us then for a session on arithmetic operators. You can book your place using the link below if you haven't done so already.
And final link, let us know how you found today's session by filling out the feedback form below. You can also let us know if you have any suggestions or topics that you would like us to cover.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye.